We're just a few days ahead of the announcement of the latest 50 best restaurant in the world list. And there are rumours there's been some change at the top, that what was number 1, El Bulli, and what was number 2, the Fat Duck, have slipped downwards. Now, often on this blog, we're accused of being too friendly towards Heston Blumenthal. In the comments down there, you slag us off endlessly whenever we interview him. So I've come here to Bray, to Heston Blumenthal's development kitchen just across the road from the Fat Duck, to ask him some pointed questions and perhaps in advance answer a few of your comments. So we are just a few days ahead of the announcement of the latest 50 best restaurant in the world list. In the past few years, you've been number 2. Before that, you were number 1. If you've fallen down the list when it's announced on Monday, will you be disappointed?
No, I won't, because I said when the year we were voted the best restaurant in the world, I said then, I don't think you can have a best restaurant in the world. I think you can have a list that most people would put, and they're 100 best restaurants on the planet. But to list them in order, I think is really tricky because it then becomes so subjective. So when we went for election, we went from number 1 to number 2. I remember doing an interview with Channel 5 News, and just before I came on, I could hear, I was sitting in the studio, and I could just hear the woman introducing the next news article, and she said, British gastronomy has been delivered a blow today as the Fat Duck plummets from number 1 to number 2 in the top 100 list. And I said then, if somebody had said 10 years ago I was going to be, Fat Duck would be in the 100 top restaurants in the world, I wouldn't have believed them.
Yeah, but you get used to that sort of stuff. I'm just thinking, are you being a bit disingenuous with this? Because you were more than chuffed when you made it to number 1, and you've been more than chuffed when you're at number 2. So if you're lower than that, surely there's a bit of you. I know how competitive you are.
Okay, I wouldn't be human if I wasn't a little bit disappointed if we dropped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. When the restaurant was number 1, obviously, there was a huge response in terms of people wanting to come to the restaurant. If the Fat Duck, if the Fat Duck went from number 2 to number 30, or number 20, or even say number 15 in 1 year, then what would concern me is the way that maybe some people might interpret those results and think, oh, it's not what it used to be. And of course, yeah, that would be a concern.
To what degree do you think the closure due to food poisoning has influenced your ranking in the 50 best list?
The restaurant closure over the oyster issue could definitely have an influence.
Do you think you made any mistakes in the way you handled that?
No. Well, no, I don't think I had any choice. I mean, when I closed the restaurant, the decision to close was obviously, I had no choice but to make the decision. It was an incredibly hard decision to make. I closed the restaurant not knowing if we were ever going to open again. I had no idea it was that bad, but there was no option. But having gone through this process, something good has to come out of this. Something good. And the most important thing is that the Health Protection Agency are supposedly here for the protection of the health of the British public. That means they should play a supporting role to restaurants. That means restaurants should look at them and the EHO as supporting body.
So you're saying that the health inspectors acted more as interrogators than someone who should support the restaurant? I mean, isn't that the way they should be, given that people were poisoned in your restaurant? You were quite critical of the way that they handled certain...
Well, there are obviously a few points. My major issue was with what the report did not contain, or an intimation. They didn't say anything that I could say, this is factually incorrect, but the intimations were incorrect. So the intimation was that our hygiene processes were somehow not as fastidious as they should be. They were more.
You still sound quite cross about it all.
Well, I'm not. No, not now. I'm not cross now. At the time, I was frustrated. I was frustrated because if you walk around these kitchens, it was and I have to say the general public and the press response was really positive. I mean, considering what could have happened, I thought it was really positive.
But you're quite an old hand at media stuff now. The amount of TV you're doing now has grown exponentially. You have this contract with Channel 4. On a sort of side issue, I'm wondering whether you're at all at risk now with other openings of spreading yourself too thin.
We now have 47 chefs. We have 85 odd staff in the Fat Duck alone, not the Hind's Head. In order to preserve that, the other areas of the business have to grow. Because otherwise, the pressure is on when I say that's the Fat Duck. The pressure is on the Fat Duck to produce enough revenue to pay for what else is going on. And I would say if you take some of the television stuff, particularly the feast stuff, the feast is, for me, you end up cooking a dinner for 6 people that takes maybe 3 months worth of prep and research and brainstorming. But the process of it, I learn an awful lot from it, and there's a lot of either techniques or elements of recipes we've done for Feast that will be used in other areas. If you look at, and this is an interesting thing with the 50 best, coming back to the 50 best, if you look at the restaurants that seem to do well as a generalisation, they are the ones that have a higher percentage of chefs to diners.
Now, there's a lot of people who think that Noma in Copenhagen is likely to reach number 1 in the list when it's announced on Monday. It's very much an ingredient-led kind of agenda, quite different to yours. Do you think that means that the modernist cookery is on the slide in public opinion?
I know that some newspaper, someone's going to go, this is the end of modern cooking. No, if Rayner gets the top spot, it's fantastic. No one thinks of Denmark as being one of sort of Europe's gastronomic leaders. And what René's done in that country makes it even more remarkable. So his cooking is he still uses modern techniques. He's not a traditionalist.
So you're really telling me that on Monday night, if you sit there and René Redzepi is announced as the chef of the greatest restaurant in the world and the fat duck has slipped, you will have nothing but feelings of joy in your heart?
Us chefs are incredibly competitive people. If we weren't, we wouldn't be doing what we were doing, to be honest. So no one would be a human being if they weren't disappointed by slipping down a place, or 2, or 3, but that's not the same as going from number 2, number 3, number 4, down to number 30, 40 or 50. There is a big difference here.